So now that we've decided that we are going to start learning OpenCV, next what we have to decide is what tools are we going to use for our craft. So tools help us practice our craft, but they do not make us a good craftsman. So a good craftsman will have many different tools in his pocket, but he judiciously uses the one that is most appropriate for the job. So it's not that she is married to the tools, but he is married to the craft. So that is why for OpenCV we have a many number of tools available for us in order to execute our projects. So some of these tools available to us are C++, Python and MATLAB. Often there are a lot of wars going on between programmers over programming languages. They have very strong opinions about which programming language is better, and the truth is that the programmer should just choose the language that is appropriate for their task. In computer vision we have a lot of choices. So which tool should a computer vision engineer or a programmer learn? OpenCV using C++, OpenCV using Python or MATLAB? The good news is that today we have a few options to choose from. A decade back there were no good libraries for computer vision. If you wanted to learn, you just picked a book and started coding your own mini library of computer vision algorithms. Thankfully, things are much better now. If you are a beginner, I would suggest using the path of least resistance and picking a tool you are familiar with. If you are already a Python programmer, use OpenCV with Python. If you are not familiar with Python, then it's better to learn Python and then pick up OpenCV with Python. But if you are already very good at C++, use C++ with OpenCV. Similarly, if you are already good in MATLAB, use MATLAB. That said, in a few months you will no longer be a beginner and you may be looking to apply this newly acquired knowledge to the real world. You could be thinking of a new side project or looking for a new job in this area. It pays sometimes to know how to make your choices. So in this video we'll be going over some of the pros and cons of each of the three tools that are available to us for OpenCV. So first one is the MATLAB for computer vision. So until recently, computer vision was a research area in its infancy. People who worked in computer vision were mostly in the academia or research labs. Their tool of choice was MATLAB, and for the longest time OpenCV was nowhere in comparison to what MATLAB and its community had to offer. In the last 7 years, the tide have turned, and here are some of the pros of using MATLAB. Why should you use MATLAB for computer vision? So the number one pro is the powerful matrix library. Not only do we treat an image as a multidimensional matrix in computer vision, we use a heavy dose of linear algebra also in various algorithms. MATLAB's linear algebra routines are very powerful and blazingly fast. Once we needed to solve a large sparse linear system as part of an algorithm, and it was just a one-line code in MATLAB. Whereas in C++ it would be at least 3 times faster than the MATLAB implementation. It took us days to match the performance of the MATLAB routine, and so in MATLAB a single operator is sometimes a collection of powerful algorithms that MATLAB appropriately chooses for you. The second pro is the toolboxes. Whatever your needs, there is a toolbox for that. They have an image processing toolbox, a computer vision toolbox, and a statistical and machine learning one that provide implementations of a wide variety of very useful algorithms. The functions usually provide a clean and obvious interface. Many computer vision problems are often set up as optimization problems. You are trying to maximize or minimize some objective functions under certain constraints. The optimization toolbox in MATLAB provides excellent implementations of many optimization algorithms. The next pro is the visualization and debugging tools. One of the joys of using MATLAB is that writing code, visualizing results, and debugging happens in one integrated environment, and that environment makes you extremely productive. The next pro is that it also works with OpenCV. So even though MATLAB has its own computer vision programs, we can also interface it with OpenCV. The next pro is that it has great documentation. Even staunch supporters of OpenCV admit that the documentation is not as good as MATLAB's. MATLAB comes with great documentation and examples that are easily accessible within the IDE. Great documentation alone can make coding in MATLAB 2 times faster. MATLAB functions are also better designed compared to other libraries. And they also have a large research community because they are extremely popular in the academia. Latest research demos are often shared as MATLAB code. If you want to be on the cutting edge, you should be able to read MATLAB code. Coming to the cons of MATLAB. So the number one con of MATLAB is that the cost is huge. MATLAB is hideously expensive. Let us start with the basic MATLAB, which is like $2,150, and throw in the computer vision toolbox, which is $1,300. But the computer vision toolbox requires the image processing toolbox, which is another $1,000. Add optimization and machine learning toolboxes, and that brings your grand total to $6,850. So now that you have built your application and want to deploy it, well, you gotta buy the MATLAB compiler, which is another $4,250. And if you want in 2 different operating systems, that would be another $4,000. So this MATLAB makes sense only if you get it for a discounted price through your university or if your company already has a license. Otherwise, it is very, very expensive. The second con is the learning curve. The learning curve of MATLAB is very, very steep. MATLAB is a matrix engine. There is a MATLAB way to write code which is different from the general purpose programming language like C++ or Python. And if you do not write code the MATLAB way, your code can be extremely slow. Coming to the third con, it has a slower runtime. A typical MATLAB program runs many times slower than a C++ program. Built-in MATLAB routines can be very fast, but the code you write in MATLAB will usually run much slower. Oftentimes, people end up coding computationally intensive parts in C and integrating it with MATLAB code using MEX. So these are the pros and cons of using MATLAB.